If you are curious about how breathwork can make an impact on your fertility, then this episode is for you. If you feel like you're already doing more than enough on your journey of trying to conceive, you've got a great doctor, you take all the best supplements, you eat the perfect diet, but you're just feeling stuck and you're not getting anywhere, then this is a conversation that you need to hear. Breathwork opened my eyes to so much potential when I was struggling to conceive. In healing past traumas, releasing anxiety, improving sleep, the list goes on. And it's literally just breathing. So how is this possible? All this and more is coming up on today's episode. Welcome to Your Journey to Fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Now, this episode is one I have been wanting to record for a while, and I started putting it together as a solo episode. But for this topic, in the end, I decided to go straight to someone who lives and breathes breathwork as a career. So I have ended up recording an interview with my wonderful friend, Lindsay. I'll tell you a little bit more about her in a moment, but I wanted to speak first of all about what exactly is breathwork. It seems to be like the new yoga these days. You know, it sort of seems like classes are popping up around in different cities, and so many people tell me, how is it different to something that I've done in, say, a yoga class previously? Well, in this conversation, we are mostly speaking about transformational breathwork, which is not the kind of breathing technique that you might do in a yoga class. It goes a lot deeper than that. You may have seen videos of people online having these crazy experiences and, talking about how they've had an out-of-body experience. And I can tell you that actually isn't far from the truth. And of course, everyone's experience is different, but the changes that you can make from using just your breath are pretty mind-blowing. We go into the science during this episode of how it all works and how it does have such an incredible impact on your body. But what I love about this practice is it transcends what you're able to explain. It really does. I've had sessions where I have gone to different planets. I have visited past lives. I have had wild things happen. It is actually quite crazy. So Lindsay Chan, who we're going to speak to today, she has a degree in psychology and a background in trauma-informed coaching. She is a somatic healing practitioner and a rebirthing breathwork teacher. And she's helped thousands of people work through their own healing journeys. She also now runs a training school for those who are wanting to become transformational breathwork teachers as well. So she knows her stuff. And to put it simply, Lindsay changed my life. And I've talked about this before, this idea of doing the healing work before I fell pregnant with my son was, I think, one of the big contributors to helping me fall pregnant naturally in the end. And I did a lot of breath work during that fertility journey, and the difference that it made was huge. And a lot of that, I think, was due to healing some of the trauma that I had been through and that I was holding onto. And so much of what we hold onto within these journeys, it gets stored and stuck within your body. And breathwork is a way to release that and to let it go. And I think that I'm so passionate about everything that Lindsay and I speak about on this episode, because I got to this point where, I fell pregnant and I had my baby, and I thought my healing journey was done, which in hindsight just sounds ridiculous. But I honestly did think that I had done all the work. However, it is a lifelong process. And it is something I'm still working on and probably will work on for a very long time. And I don't think I'm special. I think that we all have so much to work through. But what we speak about today is the kind of practice that you can take with you. So let's get into it. I'll stop introducing Lindsay and we'll just begin this amazing conversation. So here she is. Lindsay, I'm so thrilled to have you here. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for sharing your time and all of the amazing knowledge that I'm about to ask you about. Can we start by learning a little bit about you and your journey to doing the work that you currently do?
Yes. Well, thanks for having me, Jed. I'm so excited. So I'm Lindsay. I run an organisation called Rhythm of Breath, which is predominantly a breathwork, somatic work, and trauma-informed approach to healing and transformation. And we help people. We run a private clinic, so we work with people over time to really help them grow, and also we run events and programs. And this year we've also launched our very first facilitator program for other breathwork students and people that can go out there and also support community.
Amazing. And I think that's quite a humble description of what you do, but you actually facilitate enormous groups of just these incredible experiences where, I first found you were doing a breathwork and sound healing journey. And sound healing was something that I'd found incredibly helpful on my fertility journey. And I thought, I just want to keep doing it. And that's how I came across you. But it was so much more than that, the first experience that I had when I met you. So can we get into a little bit about breathwork? And I think that when people think of breathwork, they tend to think about, meditation and taking slow, deep breaths and perhaps regulating the nervous system really gently. But I have discovered, thanks to you, that it is a lot bigger and a lot deeper than that. So what is breath work? What are the types and what do you mostly focus on?
Thanks, Jen. It's such a huge space now. And what I find is that there's so many different styles of breath work, and which is incredible and amazing. So many schools, so many purposes for people doing it. And I think it can get a bit confusing because there's so much out there. So what we say, really, just to simplify it, is that there's 3 different styles of breath work. So you've got your functional breathing, your daily techniques, and your more transformational breath work. So that's how we kind of categorize those different, I guess, categories. Functional breathing is really around correcting our breath. So we are automatically breathing every single day, 24,000 breaths. And the way we breathe connects directly into our nervous system, which runs and operates how we feel, our state, our mental, our emotional well-being, etc. So our functional breathing, we want to be correcting, getting right, and training so that we get optimal health. And the daily techniques, you've heard of pranayama, or your listeners would have heard, and you're trained in this now, but your listeners may have heard of like yoga breathing, pranayama. We've also got Wim Hof is a big person in the world of breathwork in this area, but I would put his kind of work under daily techniques, which can really be transformational over time as well. And so we can really support things like optimal health, peak performance, mental clarity, calmness, sleep, gut health, all of these things. But the thing that a lot of people don't know about, which is really amazing, is the transformational style, which you're indicating. And this style of breathwork is and has been around for many years. And it's making a huge comeback now because of what's happening in the world around people becoming really aware of how we store things in the body and the importance of the body in everything. And so when we work with transformational breath work, we can really clear the body of trauma, stress, realign, tension, and really have these really deep, amazing experiences that can really help with our growth and transformation and healing of the past as well. So that's how I'd categorize it. And that's how I'd kind of introduce breath work. So what I love about it is that everyone can benefit. And no matter where they are, how old they are, what stage of life they're in, what they're coming to it for, there is a style or a technique that can support them. It's an adaptable toolkit that everyone can work with.
Yeah. And it's breath. People often say, how can just breathing create such a huge response in my body? It's like, well, Bit of magic, bit of science, you know.
It's mad, isn't it? Like sometimes I sit and I go, you're teaching people how to breathe, Lindsay, and like good job, but you're helping them transform their lives. And I go, wow, that's crazy. But you know, when you think about the science behind it, when you think about the spirituality of breath as well, there's just so much in it. And some of it is unexplainable, some of the states of altered consciousness, what we can get into, some of the experiences people connect to when they, you know, connect with past loved ones or ancestors, or, you know, really just epic psychedelic experiences sometimes that can drop in, that can be so deeply healing in the subconscious. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I think drew me so much to breathwork. And, you know, I'd been a yoga teacher for years by the time I met you, and it was just something I'd never come across before, this sort of deep transformational style of breathing. And it is that beautiful blend of the science and the spiritual, because, you know, we'll go into the science and how it works, but people have these transcendent experiences that you can't explain through science. And I think anyone who's been through a journey of breathwork will relate to that. And I certainly do as well. So can we talk a little bit about, first of all, this word trauma? And I think that it is a word that kind of gets thrown about these days, which I think is good and bad, because yes, it is a big word. It's a very evocative word, but at the same time, you know, we all have trauma. And especially when we're talking about women who have gone through infertility and loss and repeated loss, you know, we are taught our whole lives that kind of women's health things are to be pushed down and not talked about. And gosh, the trauma that creates, you know, one thing after the next. So I think that it's good that we talk about trauma these days, because it isn't just about those who have been to war and those who have been abused, or, you know, someone who's been through a natural disaster. It's kind of everyone. So can you talk about what trauma is and how it really affects the body?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to, Jen. And it's something obviously that I am so excited about, aware about, and just really always learning more of. It's a space that is growing, and I agree, it's a word that is kind of bandied about a lot, and it's a good and a bad thing around that. And I really want people to know that trauma has so much weight against the word, and some people sometimes will get scared of what that means, like if they realize they're carrying trauma and so on. But the first thing I want to share, especially for your listeners who aren't aware of what trauma is and how it works, is that yes, everybody has and holds trauma in some way. Some is just a little bit more prevalent than others, and it's a little bit more triggering and not as manageable. But all trauma is really, on the most simplest basic term, is when we've had life events that got a little bit too much for us. And so we weren't able to process them in a supportive and safe way at the time. So we shut down that event, and that event gets stored in the body for the time being. And it can sometimes over time get lodged. So, and it stores in different ways. And it can sometimes, if it's big T trauma, or a combination of what we call small T trauma, which is the traumas that perhaps you don't think are big enough, but are actually still really big to that person, can create an experience of what we call fight, flight, freeze, which I'm sure everyone's aware of. And this can just become our experience of life. And it's not an optimal way of living. And so I think what's really good is that we start to normalize trauma, which I think is happening in the world. But I also really want people to know that when we have and we hold trauma, there's nothing wrong with us. It's just part of being human. And actually, life is big. I mean, being human in our modern time right now is so much bigger in a lot of ways. There's just stuff coming at us all the time. You know, we've all just been through COVID and a couple of years of that. And there's lots going on in the world. So I think it's great that we're normalizing it and we're talking about it. And then the second piece of it is that I think the awareness of it, not being scared of it, acknowledgement of it. But the second piece, and this is why I get so excited when people come into our practices, it's like, I want people to know it doesn't have to be permanent. And actually, we have the power to support ourselves, to release it, not to let it go, but to integrate it. So whatever happened to us in the past, whatever these shocks, these traumas, these horrible events were, or these long periods of really stressful times, even though some of that might be getting stored in the body and adding to a trauma response, we can actually heal our body. And the great thing about it is that when we are able to do that in a safe, supportive way, we integrate those experiences into our body, into our experience. And what that means is that rather than letting it go, it didn't happen, we can actually just love and accept that part of us. And it's almost like, I love this beautiful analogy of it becomes like a scar on you that was part of you, that you can look back and go, that was part of me, and that's made me stronger. It's made me more resilient. It's made my heart open more. It's made me softer, or, all these wonderful things that come from the wisdom of trauma. So I just love working in the space and supporting people through that journey of awareness, helping them move it through, helping them integrate it, and then coming back to feeling their own power from it.
The way you explain that is so beautiful. And so many of the women that I work with, they probably don't think that they have trauma, but then you dig a little bit deeper and, things that come from your childhood that you don't even really remember in a conscious way every day, they show up again years later. And something as deeply personal as wanting to have a child brings so much out that you never realized. And one of these things that I find is that, if you have been through loss, especially, a later term loss, and you really had that time to connect with your baby, I find that, women don't want to forget about that. And they think that trauma work and moving through it is about putting that in the past and not having to deal with it anymore. But I find that's not what we're trying to do here at all, is it? Can you explain a little bit about how you can work through your trauma and kind of honor your past at the same time?
Oh, yeah. Well, that really, I felt something in my heart when you shared that about your listeners, and that's sometimes their experience, because it makes me feel really sad for them. And I understand, I know I haven't been through pregnancy loss or any of those experiences that you've just mentioned, but I have been through a lot of my own deep personal grief. So I can resonate on that level, in that sometimes when you're in the grief or you're in the loss, for me, it feels like you don't want to forget. You feel that connection when you're in those spaces of grief, even though it's heavy. And I can imagine for the ladies that you work with, that it's the fear of letting go of the experience. Yeah. And I know when I've worked with women who've had journeys in the space that you work in, specialize in, it can be years and years and years later when they come to us and they do this work, and the body starts to remember and starts to bring up memories, or starts to allow the body to start to heal the parts of them that they didn't look at before, such as the deep grief and the deep pain and the deep loss at that really, really deep level. And it can be really surprising to feel that through a somatic experience, through a body experience, years and years and years on after the loss. But what I find is that when that happens, they are able to integrate their experiences more, meaning that the way I see it is, it's almost like there's grief and loss, but there's also grief and loss with trauma attached to it. And grief is one of the most beautiful human experiences. It's so tender, as you know, Jen, and so beautiful and sacred. But when we have it with trauma attached to it, such as the shock and the experiences, and, the smaller T trauma, which can be anything like going home and seeing the baby's clothes, or the nursery, or all the things that are kind of associated with the loss, then they're the things that make the whole experience even more difficult. So what I would say is that when we are able to just process those little things through the body over time in a safe and supportive way, we're able to hold ourselves in that grief and that loss. And it's not that it goes away, because grief's always with us, right? And especially with some of the things that your ladies have been through, it's always with us, and it comes in waves, and it's such a beautiful experience to be honored, but it just feels a little bit lighter. So what I find is that when we do this work, the anxiety isn't as strong around it. The triggers aren't as strong around it. And PTSD, obviously, we can work with. And so you've just got this experience of more clean grief. So it just comes in ways we're able to process it more healthily and just know that it's a normal part of our living. The other thing that I want to just share really quickly, that's a big part of this work, is that when, and some of your ladies might not know this, or they may be a little bit aware of it, and maybe this is a suggestion or an invitation to perhaps look at, is that when we have these traumas or these shocks or these long periods of stressful times, we can often start to form a belief structure around ourselves, our body, our health, our ability to be abundant in the areas that we want to be, our beliefs around worthiness, and various other very, very personal beliefs around those topics. And we sometimes don't know that those beliefs have been formed at the time of trauma. And those beliefs stick with us. They kind of like become our operating system. It's our model of the world. So on a very, very, very deep level, sometimes if I'm feeling not worthy, my body's not working for me, all of these things, then that's kind of how we show up in the world, vibrationally and energetically. And so when we're able to do this work and we're able to process everything and what's happened to us in a safe and supportive way, we're able to take a look at those belief structures as well, what might be keeping things stuck for us or what might be keeping things in the past or heavy, and to be able to go, actually, no, I want to take a look at that. I want to do some work and processing around that and start to create and form a new belief that this horrible things happen to me and I'm giving it love and I'm giving myself kindness and compassion and doing the healing work around it. And now I'm in a place to start to create a new belief of my body's amazing. Miracles can happen. Anything can happen. I love and support my body. My body's supporting me and doing everything that's keeping me protected. I'm ready for new things now, so those kind of things can really show up in the process as well.
Oh, I have chills. It's such, I resonate with so much of that. And I just want to go into this idea of what you said around these beliefs kind of being the operating system, because these happen without us realizing. Isn't that right? Yeah. So it's kind of like it's in your subconscious and you're going about your day and you don't realize, but, all of these beliefs that are running your mind in the background are kind of making decisions for you. Can you explain how that would show up in someone's life? Like, what would they find they would be doing or noticing or feeling so that they can start to become aware of perhaps these traumas have had an impact on their belief system?
Yeah. Okay. So let me just think about an example just to try and make it a bit more tangible. So our belief system can not just come from our traumas around that particular topic, but it might come from things like childhood or our family structure or our environmental structure, as you know, when we were growing up. So if I'm running a belief, I'm not worthy of having everything I want in life, or let me try and be a bit more specific. Perhaps I'm holding some trauma around how I was held by my own mother, or feeling loved, supported, nurtured, and safe when I was a child. That belief of I'm not safe in the world, my body is not serving me, can be at such a deep level. And if I'm running those kind of beliefs, then my behavior and my thinking, my energetic system and my nervous system is all linked to that belief system of what we're running at. Versus I am empowered and I am living an optimal health life. My body is a miracle. I can do anything that I want. Everything is possible. The cells remember and the cells know. Yeah. Our thoughts and our words and our language that we use and our beliefs all directly inform the cells in the body. Yeah, we are so powerful. And this may trigger some of your listeners who perhaps haven't, because it's not something we get taught at school, And it's only when you start doing this work that you realize, and you start listening to these podcasts and doing all the research, that energetically we are the creators of our reality. And I know that can be triggering for someone. It was certainly triggering for me when I first started to look into all of this years ago. And I was like, okay, so all these things that are happening in my life are because of the way that I'm showing up, or ancestral stuff maybe, or, all of these things. I'm responsible. But actually, when we have that awareness and we start to own it, what happens, Jen, is that we start to become really empowered. If we choose to have that belief that we can create our reality, we can create our body, we can create our health, and I know horrible things do happen that are completely out of our control as well. But we do have this element of, yes, I can support my body. I am a powerful being. That is such a much more empowering way for all of us, and especially your community going through what they're going through, to be able to feel that they can create what they want.
It sounds so woo, doesn't it? When it's like, oh, my thoughts can physically change my body. But it actually is quite scientific. And, there's lots of different ways that you can prove that, through the placebo effect that drug companies run, and, athletes who work on visualization and affirmations before they go and compete or perform in their sport, and it shows that their performance increases when they visualize themselves doing it better, and, even better than they were doing in training. And then there's other studies that show that just thinking about working a muscle increases that muscle mass within that area of the body. Even if you're not physically moving, you're just imagining your body moving. I mean, how else can you explain all of these things if it isn't the power of the mind? And I just think that is wild.
Wild. It's wild. And it is amazing. It is, 20 years ago when I started learning about NLP, I started looking at law of attraction and all of these things. I learned it in my 20s, and I was like, I'm just going to manifest, I'm going to visualize, and everything's going to happen to me. It doesn't quite work like that. But what's amazing is now we've got the science around epigenetics, how we can form. Joe Dispenza, just look at his work and what he's doing for us all, and the science that he's bringing around epigenetics, being able to change our neural pathways, be able to change and create different states in the body through meditation, and just, the basis of the science of how we can create. Our cells change every 7 years, in our DNA. And for me, it's looking at all of those areas. It's looking at trauma release from the body. It's looking at ancestral patterns that we might be carrying subconsciously, which is the thing. It's looking at our own birth trauma. What happened there? And is that an imprint that we are holding on a subconscious layer? That's something we can heal. Did we come into the world? Were we safe? Were we, healthy? Were we held? Did we have everything that we needed? And that forms a structure for us as to how we move through life. So some work we can do around that to heal childhood. And then obviously, as we move through life. So all of that healing and that re-imprinting on a cellular level really shapes up a more healthier way of being. And then future stuff, we've got this power of visualization, getting into these optimal states, talking to ourselves, rewiring ourselves for the future in the present now. So it's almost like, we're telling our body, our brain doesn't know the difference between the past, the present, and the future, especially when we're in these optimal states. So we can actually start to create the memories of the future in the present now, and then we start to move through them. So there's just so much in this work when we start to work with the body, and science is just amazing. And
yes,
be like being a magician of
yes. Yeah, we're magicians. I love that. Can we talk about this idea of this bottom-up approach? And I think when people come to this world of trauma and they're trying to heal their experiences, what I find in the Western world is that we go and see a therapist. We go and do talk therapy, counseling and psychotherapy, and we undoubtedly need these practices. We need to validate what we've been through and intellectualize and understand it. And I think that's incredibly powerful and healing. But I don't know if you find this in your work, but I have found with myself and my students that talk therapy gets to a point where it isn't helping anymore. And that isn't a bad thing. And it's no fault of talk therapy, but can you explain why we get to that point and what we need to do instead.
Absolutely. It's a big topic and a huge question that comes up. I firstly want to acknowledge the amazing practices of talk therapy, psychology, psychotherapy, counseling, because the biggest thing that I believe that they offer is obviously unpacking events, but structures and the awareness of what's happened and how it's happened, and the processing of them through being seen, being acknowledged, being heard, asking questions, being reflecting, mirroring, and all of those sorts of things. And where we can go that step further is when we start to incorporate the body. So this is what we call somatic work. And somatic work, Peter Levine, for your listeners, if you've not heard of him, and, Gabor Mate, and all of these amazing teachers that we've got out there right now are really advancing the field of somatic work, soma being the body. And what we are learning now, and this is the future, I believe, of kind of healing, transformation, is that when we have trauma and stress, it's stored in the body. So when we combine the mind together with the body and we work directly with the body to make it feel safe, supported, and we give it space and time, and then we bring the movement and we go direct into the body through, our skills that we have as space holders, we are able to go into these, or first of all, we're able to find in the body where these experiences live, and we're able to bring that movement through breath or somatic work or spinal or yoga or all the things that we do to start to dissolve the trauma, start to, what was the word I used the other day? And I was like, I really like that word, start to loosen that trauma imprint. And we can actually start to move it through the body to integrate it. And then we can use the support of the talk therapy, the tools to empower our people outside of the sessions. And I think the combination of both is absolutely magic. Yeah, the understanding, the awareness, but then the somatic work through breath work is huge. It's just amazing when we do it in a trauma-informed way to really directly, quickly, and powerfully start to release. And then the body just takes over. Like, my role with clients isn't about me guiding at all. And this is one of the things that I love. I sit back and I hold the space, and we're just trying new things. How does this feel in the body? What happens if you bring some breath here? What are the sensations telling you there? And we are exploring the body as the kind of the keys, the boss in the sessions. And we are listening to the body and what it wants to do. How does it want to release? What are the sensations telling us? How does that feel? Is there a memory there? And we're holding space for the body. And so when we do that, the body actually takes over with its body wisdom, this intelligence that we have. We have the intelligence to have a trauma imprint to keep us safe. We also have the intelligence in the body naturally to release that. And it's incredible how you see, as you know, you've seen so many sessions of like how the body moves, unwinds, releases, and it's wild, but it's nature, it's human, and feels a bit weird sometimes. Sometimes it's stuff how the body moves, but it's like, wow, how incredible are we at holding trauma, but also releasing trauma.
It's funny, we think we're so clever, aren't we? We build cities and we, do all these impressive things and we go to the moon. But gosh, if we had to do a fraction of what our body had to do day in, day out, we wouldn't last 10 minutes. We've got to keep so many bodily functions going optimally at every moment of the day just to ensure survival. So to think that our mind is more important than our body, I think is really naive. And when you do just let the body do its thing, I mean, gosh, if we had to think about keeping our heart beating or got to, process a few toxins through my liver right now. Come on, where would we even start?
Yeah.
So I think when you can just say, right, my body is a lot more intelligent than I give it credit for, or that I am, it just can show you some incredible things. So,
I mean, Jen, I just want to say this, if it's okay, because I think it's really important for your listeners who aren't aware of it. But my role, half of the time, is getting people connected to their body. when we have so much stress and go through periods of trauma or whatever, we can have a tendency to disconnect from ourselves because it feels like the body isn't a safe place to be. Yeah, so I'll say that again in case it's resonating. When we have periods of stress or trauma, we can subconsciously, not intentionally, but disconnect from our body and being connected into the body. We can have experiences of shutdown, disassociation, freeze, not wanting to be here, fight, flight kind of experience. And so safety and creating safety for our clients, our participants, and, those we work with in our communities is the key. It's the key. It's safe to be in our bodies. It's safe to relax. It's safe to feel our emotions, even though they were painful and we've kind of, I don't want to look at that. We're just going to put it over here for now. When we're held in a space where we start to rewire the fact that it's safe and that we can feel, and we do it in a slow way, in a way that they feel in control of, that's where the magic happens.
I think that people listening to this will resonate with that enormously. When you are struggling with infertility, you think, I can't do the one thing my body is biologically designed to do. And especially when it comes to loss, you think, my baby wasn't even safe in my body. And gosh, the shame and the guilt that comes with all of that. And I think that is the first thing that happens when someone is going through an experience like this. They lose that connection to their body straight away. And it's compounded by, I go to a medical doctor and I'm having, ultrasounds internally and being poked and prodded in surgeries and blood tests, and your power is completely taken away. Your body is just something else that is part of a process. And I hate that. And thank you for raising that, because I think that is maybe the biggest step to getting back to where you want to be.
You just touched upon something there, Jen, that I felt something in my body around. You said about the experience of shame and guilt. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more about the experience of that in your experience?
My gosh, I think it goes back to puberty. And of course, when you get your period as a young woman, you are told to hide it because it's shameful. Like, don't tell anyone. Make sure you've got a pad in your bag because you don't want to. How dare you let anyone see that you've got your period? It starts there. And then, it comes with all the other parts of being female, doesn't it? Like, be good, don't be loud, do as you're told, smile, all of those sorts of things that I think we all have heard growing up. And then it's, sex is very unspoken about as well. Let's hope those sort of things are changing. But all of this is shameful. My body is shameful because I'm a woman. I can't let people know I'm having my period. I can't be shown to enjoy sexual experiences and all of these horrible things that we get told. And then it comes to having a baby, which we're told from a young age will happen the minute you don't use birth control, because, that's the worst thing that could happen to you. It's either you're going to get an STD or you're going to get pregnant as soon as you have sex. And then we find out that actually falling pregnant isn't the easiest thing to do. Humans are not good reproducers like other animals. And then when we struggle and it takes months or years, wow, all of that compounded is overwhelming. And then something happens and you do fall pregnant, and then you lose that baby. And you just think, well, they were right. My body isn't a safe place to be. It isn't something that should be honored and nourished and cherished. It's can't even do the one thing that it was meant to do. And I'm sort of speaking about it quite flippantly and a little bit sarcastically, but it's very, very common, all of these experiences that I hear.
Thank you for sharing that. And now I've got a bit more of a insight and into that experience. And I know that when I have worked with beautiful women on the fertility journey, a lot of the themes come up around that shame and guilt, body shame, but also what comes up a lot actually is this feeling of being a very lonely journey.
So lonely.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear from you on this around, going to social gatherings. And because the journey can sometimes be so long, It's like people are asking you questions and you're not quite wanting to share because it's such a personal journey, or people are a bit awkward around you because they want to support you, but they don't quite know what to say. And for me, what I'm resonating with from a trauma perspective is the feelings of shame, guilt, and loneliness are really big ones for the body to hold.
Huge.
Huge. So and this is why I love what you're doing so much, the community. And I know I've worked with ladies actually from your community, as you know, and what they've said is the experience of being connected and to be able to share openly what their experiences are, that's where the shame gets dissolved. And that's huge. As you know, Brene Brown's work talks about, shame can't be shame if it's shared, because the component of shame is that it's locked in and it's silent and it's very personal. But as soon as we start expressing that in community in a safe and supportive way, it gets dissolved. So yeah, just celebrating you and your work, love, and the community that you build, and inviting, I guess, your ladies and your community to just know that the awareness, if they are carrying that, then to seek support to process as well. Yeah.
It is so big. Thank you. That's a huge part of it. I think the healing starts when you can, gosh, and then honestly, you open up about fertility issues and you realize that it's, every third person these days. And, how sad is that it's so common and yet we still feel so alone? It makes me mad. Anyway, so thank you. Can we talk a bit about the science? So, we're talking about how amazing all this stuff is, and literally it is breathing.
Yeah.
So can you explain, what is transformational breathing when you see it, when you're practicing it, and how does it take you to these deeper levels of, maybe sometimes it's a transcendent experience? How does it get you out of these layers of trauma?
Okay, where to start? So just talking about transformational breath work, because it's a little bit different for the others, but the key theme here is that breath is the one thing we can consciously control. So we can take a different style of breath, we can do a different rhythm of breath right now. And once we bring consciousness into how we breathe, we can change the state in our body. Yeah. So we can, if we're doing more functional breathing, we can balance our nervous system. If we're doing daily techniques, depending on what technique we're doing, we can change our state into more performance, mental clarity, gut health, balance, sleep, rest, all of those things. Or we can train different things in the body neurologically and chemically. For transformational breath work, what we're doing is we're working with a connected style of breath. So it's very strong. It's basically, and I'll just do it for those that are listening on the podcast, just in audio, is we're bringing like a breath of almost like a circular breath. And we are bringing that energy in so that it's creating a lot of movement in the body. So what we do is generally either in and out through the nose. I like to work a lot with mouth breathing, which is not, by the way, how we want to be breathing 24/7. It's the opposite. But for the form of transformational breathing, it just gets a lot of movement very quickly. So it sounds and looks like this. Different paces and different rhythms, and we've got a whole technique around it that we use to make it safe. But generally what that can do is it can connect to our nervous system to consciously put us in a high stress state intentionally. So it's almost like a controlled stress response, such as like when we're going to a nice bath, the sauna, when we're fasting, we're putting the body into a high stress state, into a conscious way of being, so that the body can connect and the breath can connect, oxygenize the body on a cellular level, connect to our fascia, our tissues, our memories, subconscious layers of the body, our energetic, mental, emotional, and physical. Okay, so that's why it's so powerful, because breath can just connect into all of those experiences, as well as kind of like ancestral soul level DNA, epigenetics, all of that. So we are accessing our whole being. And what happens is when this can happen and the body starts to feel safe, if it's held properly by a good container, a good facilitator, we can start to promote a shutdown of the fear center part of the brain. And we can go into very activating states. So everything's moving, everything's happening. We're in this high stress response. But we're also, because of the very long, slow exhales, connecting to our parasympathetic part of our nervous system, which is our rest, relax, recover, digest, heal. So we are in this really activating state where we're moving a lot of energy. We're connecting to a lot of old stuff that gets stored and shut down. And we are also in this very deeply relaxed state where we're feeling very safe. And in that state, the body's natural healing wisdom switches on. And this is when we start to surface and uncover old memories, old traumas, tensions in the body that have got lodged. And it's also when we can start to enter into these altered states of consciousness where we can have psychedelic experiences, we can have out-of-body experiences, we can connect to loved ones that we've lost, we can have a sense of wisdom of ancestors coming through, because we are no longer connected just to this physical body. Our brain and our mind allows us to remember that we are actually part of this energetic field of life, and breath allows us to connect back to that. And so in these experiences of fear center shutting down, we're in a very strong high stress response, but also very deeply parasympathetic. We're going into certain brain waves that promote deep healing. We are able to access traumatic imprints in the body and to be able to hold ourselves in, rather than repressing, dissociating, disconnecting, we're able to actually hold them and take a look at them. And our process at Rhythm of Breath is all about, we don't need to go into the memory of it. If that's there, just come back to your sensations in your body. What's the fear that you're feeling? How does that feel? You're safe to feel this. It's going to pass through the body in a few moments. I know it feels like a lot right now. Tell me where you feel this fear. Tell me where you feel this pain. And those moments and those waves of traumatic imprints just move through. And sometimes it's physical, shaking, tremoring. Sometimes it's like this jolt of kundalini that comes. Sometimes it's really deep emotion, rage, frustration, deep pain and sadness. And then also on the other side, it's like, and there's no good or bad, by the way. We always just say every emotion, every sensation is amazing and beautiful part of human experience. But on the other side of that, we can have these moments of just pure peace. Mm-hmm. DMT chemicals can get released from the brain, which is the bliss state. And I know when I lost my dad and I discovered breath work for the first time, I went on this journey. I thought I was going into a coaching session. And like 3 hours later, I'd released all this fear. I was crying like a baby for almost an hour. All this sensation came from my core all the way up my body, out of my nose. And then in this deep experience of peace and bliss, I was with my dad. Mm-hmm. And there was no physical body. We were just together in this beautiful light. And I just felt him. And the deep healing that comes from that embodied feeling of connection and connection back to myself and connection to everything that is was just incredible. So, yeah, we don't necessarily need to get into memories, which people, that's a question I get a lot is, will I need to revisit things? No. Things might come up, but we stay away from the detail of it. Mm-hmm. We stay in the body, we allow the body to feel safe, and then we can do the work. Yeah, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but it was a great question. So
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I just find it just so incredible that you are able to create these experiences with breath. And it's, you don't need hours and hours to do this either. I find that it is so instant. You can do an hour or two of these sessions, and the changes that come out of that, I found, were equivalent to like months of therapy. So yes, it's not to be discounted, the power that you have to create your own healing in the right space. And thank you. My last question. How does this work help us move closer to the things that we want in life, the things that we're trying to manifest, our goals? How does that help us get closer to them?
Yes, 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 yes. Great question. And I love this because I think it's really important when we're doing trauma work, we're doing stress work, we're healing, that we also remember that we're doing it to empower ourselves to move forward. And I think the balance of being in the healing work and doing the work, and also remembering that we are empowered, we're in control, we're moving towards our goals, we're moving towards our vision, is also so important. And I think when you do the two together, it can be fast tracked. But your question is about how do we move towards that and how can it help? I think when we clear the body of stress and we clear the body of anxiety, we start to change our beliefs. We can start to really change and restructure how we show up in life and how we believe what's possible. I think that just at its core is huge, because from that, we start to behave differently. Our body starts to react differently. And I guess I know this is woo-woo for some people. We are all energetic beings, and the vibration that we carry in terms of the heavy emotions versus the lighter emotions really, can really change our life. Like for me, that's really the core. That's really why we're doing it. When we are clear of the heaviness of the past and we integrate it and hold ourselves with kindness, compassion, and love, our body can come back into complete realignment. And in that realignment, we can access things like hope, gratitude, so much love, kindness and compassion for ourselves, a belief about how powerful we are. And when we start to do that visualization work as well, we're starting to imprint in the body the fact that we've already got everything that we want right now. It's just in our future, but we feel it in the present. So and then we can start to move towards our goals faster.
Thank you. That is so powerful. I love you, Lindsay. I'm so happy that I met you. And I think that you changed my life. And I think that you've helped me change other people's lives in a little bit more of a big way as well. So thank you for that. And just for all of the work that you do and just being amazing. Where can people learn more about you or connect with you, ask you questions if they want to?
Oh, thank you, Jen. And I love you so much too. And I've loved connecting with you on your journey. And I just want to say how amazing and humble you have been when I first met you, and now, seeing your community grow and how much incredible, amazing, important, meaningful work. So I see you too. And I'm so excited to see it grow for you. In terms of if anyone who wants to follow, they can follow Rhythm of Breath. It's Rhythm, one of those little underscore thingies of underscore thingy breath on Instagram, or you can look us up, rhythmbreath.com.au.
No worries. I'll add links to those in the show notes too.
Yeah,
is there anything you want to leave people with before we finish up?
No, just that so much love to your listeners. And yes, just holding all of us with the belief that the body is amazing and your body is amazing. And no matter where you are in your journey, even if there's a part of you that's struggling to really believe that, just tune in and just know there is maybe just a small part of you that remembers that your body is amazing. Tap into that as you're going through the journey.
Thank you. So important to know. Thank you again for being here, Lindsay. And so appreciate you.
Loved it so much. Loved it so much. Thanks, Jen. See you soon.
See you.
Bye, Rena.
Thank you so much for joining me right to the end of this episode today. I just love Lindsay. I could chat to her for so long about all of these things, and just to go through all of her knowledge and the way that some of these practices can help you is just doesn't cease to amaze me ever. So I hope that you have the opportunity to experience some of these practices for yourself. And if you have any questions or you want to learn a little bit more about how you can begin to go through your own breathwork journey, reach out to me, let me know. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone, because you never know who else might be struggling. Now, on the next episode of the podcast, I am going to be speaking about the idea of surrender. This incredibly difficult and elusive place to get to when you're struggling to conceive. So I'm going to be speaking a little bit about how I managed to get to this place on my own journey and how I help a lot of my students with theirs. So until then, sending you all of my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.